Long before Kenny Bednarek from Rice Lake won his medal, long before the history of Jesse Owens that he made in Berlin, there was this man, George Poage. James Grow introduces us to the athlete who should really be a household name.
Let's go back in time more than 100 years ago. It was 1904, the third ever Olympic Games. It was the first in the U.S. A Wisconsin man made history, but his story isn't one we're all familiar with until the past few years when he's finally gotten the recognition he deserves.
That man is George Poage. He was the first African American to win a medal in the Olympics. He won the bronze in the 200 and 400 meter hurdles at the 1904 Games in St. Louis.
We're less than 50 years or out of slavery for an African American to be able to compete against white people and win. That's an important contribution.
George Poage was born in Missouri in 1880 but moved to La Crosse, Wisconsin as a child. He went to UW-Madison where he became the first African American on the team and first to win a Big Ten championship. He graduated in 1904. Shortly after, he competed in the St. Louis Olympics and was sponsored by the Milwaukee Athletic Club.
For an African American and for a citizen of Wisconsin, that's a big deal.
But his story isn't well known. Back then, the Olympics had little fanfare. There were no media tours or even cash payouts for being on the podium.
All we've got are some very grainy, a few precious still pictures, right, of George. So I think the documentation of it is first of all, is challenging.
George also shied away from any potential fame.
George didn't really make a big deal about it, right?
However, almost 100 years later, people began to take notice. In 1998, he was inducted into the Wisconsin Athletic Hall of Fame and given a plaque near Panther Arena in Milwaukee.
Even at that point, people just didn't really know a lot about his achievements and didn't really know a lot about him.
Until a few years ago. Recently, he was the subject of a local documentary and multiple short biographies. In 2016, the city of La Crosse built a statue of him. Slowly, his story is being told more.
I wish we could really celebrate him and really give him the kudos that he deserves.
After the Olympics, he became a teacher and principal in St. Louis. Then he moved to Chicago to be a postal clerk. There, he lived the rest of his life in relative anonymity. He never married or had kids. He was a private man holding on to a secret. He didn't come out himself, but it was a relative who told the public George Poage was gay.
I think that in today's world, George Poage would be shocked and astonished by how far the world has come, but I think that he would also be more proud and more open to accept who he was himself.
He wasn't looking for the attention, especially given the implications of the early 1900s.
So we have to understand that in George Poage time, the world was very different. People could lose their jobs. They could be evicted. They could be, banished by their families, their friends, everyone, simply for being who they were. I do think that George Poage would be more willing to be seen today, knowing that he could have an impact on someone else's life.
George Poage lived in Chicago until he passed away in 1962. His achievements helped pave the way for many great athletes like Jesse Owens.
If he can do it, so can we, and they do it.
120 years later, George Poage is finally being recognized as a pioneer. James Grow, TMJ4 News.